You are already dead. You just don't know it yet. It happened 66 million years ago. On a morning that started like every other morning, the sun rose, animals ate, life continued, the same way it had continued for 165 million years. And then, in the space of a single second, the most successful animals to ever walk the surface of this planet were given a death sentence they could not appeal, could not fight, and could not survive. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how it happened. You'll understand why the creatures that ruled this world for longer than we can truly comprehend were powerless to stop it. And you'll understand why their extinction is the single greatest reason you are alive right now. Stay with me, because this story, the real story, not the version they taught you in school, is far stranger, far more brutal, and far more personal than you think. Before we get to the death, and trust me, we will get to the death, I need you to understand something first. I need you to understand just how wrong the story you were probably told actually is. Most people think the asteroid hit, there was a big explosion, and the dinosaurs were gone. Done. Simple. That is not what happened. What actually happened was slower, more terrifying, more systematic. It was not a single moment of destruction. It was a chain reaction of catastrophes, each one feeding into the next, that played out over months and years. It was not a bang. It was a slow, grinding collapse of an entire world. And the most chilling part? Scientists now believe that if the asteroid had arrived just 30 seconds earlier or 30 seconds later, it might have missed the most dangerous possible impact point. The extinction might never have happened the way it did. 30 seconds. That's all that separated the age of dinosaurs from the age of mammals. From the world that existed to the world that made us. Let's go back to the beginning. Because to understand how it ended, you first need to see what was at stake.
Close your eyes for a second.
Actually, don't. Keep watching. But imagine I'm describing a world to you. A world where the continents are in different places, where there are no polar ice caps, where shallow, warm seas cover huge swaths of what is now dry land, where the air is thicker, warmer, richer in carbon dioxide, where the forests are denser, the animals larger, the ecosystems more complex than almost anything alive today. This is Earth. But it is not our Earth. This is the Late Cretaceous period, and it is around 66 million years ago. And here is the first thing you need to understand about the world we're about to destroy. This was not a primitive world. This was not a world on the edge of collapse. This was a world at the absolute peak of its power. Dinosaurs had been dominating this planet for 165 million years. I want you to really feel that number. Modern humans, you, me, everyone who has ever built a city or written a book or looked up at the stars and wondered, we have existed for roughly 300,000 years. We think of human history as vast and ancient. We think the Roman Empire was a long time ago. The Roman Empire was 2,000 years ago. We've been around for 300,000 years. The dinosaurs had already been here for 165 million years before the asteroid hit. They had been on this Earth 550 times longer than us, and they showed no signs of going anywhere. In the late Cretaceous, Tyrannosaurus rex, the animal that has become our shorthand for the entire age, was actually a newcomer. T-Rex had only evolved about 2 million years before the extinction. By dinosaur standards, it was practically a baby species. But what a species it was. A full-grown Tyrannosaurus rex stood 4 meters tall at the hip and stretched 12 meters from nose to tail. Its bite force, over 8,000 pounds per square inch, was the strongest of any land animal we know of, ever. Its teeth were not just sharp, they were designed to crush bone. In the skies above, Quetzalcoatlus, a pterosaur with a wingspan of up to 11 meters, patrolled the coastlines. 11 meters. That is larger than a small aircraft. It stood as tall as a giraffe when it walked on the ground. In the oceans below, mosasaurs, apex predators reaching 17 meters in length, made the sea a place of genuine terror. This was a full, complex, thriving world. Every niche filled, every food chain intact. In a few million years, a blink in geological time, almost all of it would be gone. But first, something had to start the chain reaction, and it had already been traveling toward Earth for thousands of years.
Somewhere in the solar system, for billions of years, a rock had been minding its own business. It was roughly 10 to 15 kilometers across. The size of a city. Mount Everest is 8.8 kilometers tall, so picture something larger than the tallest mountain on Earth, but in space, tumbling end over end, completely indifferent to the living world below. Scientists believe it originated in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. At some point, through a gravitational interaction we may never fully reconstruct, its orbit shifted. And it began, slowly, to drift inward toward Earth. Here is the thing about space that is genuinely terrifying: there is no warning system. There are no alarms. The universe does not send a notification. For the animals alive on Earth in the Late Cretaceous, there was no indication, none, that anything was wrong. The asteroid had been on its way for potentially thousands of years. And nothing alive on Earth knew. Now here is the detail that should genuinely keep you up at night. The asteroid struck the Yucatan Peninsula, a shallow, carbonate-rich section of seafloor packed with sulfur-bearing rock. Sulfur. Remember that word. It matters enormously. If the asteroid had hit the deep ocean, the energy would have been partially absorbed. If it had hit a different type of rock, the chemical composition of what was released would have been different. But it hit exactly the wrong place. The worst possible combination of shallow water and sulfur-rich rock. And consider this: if the asteroid had arrived just 30 seconds earlier or later, Earth's rotation would have placed a different part of the planet beneath it. It likely would have hit the deep ocean instead. The extinction might never have happened. 30 seconds in a journey of millions of years across hundreds of millions of kilometers. That is the margin by which the entire history of life on Earth was rewritten. On the day of impact, which fossil evidence suggests was spring in the northern hem. On the day of impact, which fossil evidence suggests was spring in the northern hemisphere, the asteroid entered Earth's atmosphere at roughly 60 degrees, traveling at 20 kilometers per second. That is 72,000 kilometers per hour. 24 times faster than a bullet. At that speed, the atmosphere offers essentially no resistance. The asteroid punched through it like it wasn't there. The journey from the edge of the atmosphere to the ground took less than 10 seconds. 10 seconds. And then, nothing was ever the same again. The explosion that followed was not like anything you have a reference point for. The largest nuclear weapon ever detonated, the Soviet Tsar Bomba, released about 50 megatons of energy. The Chicxulub impact released somewhere between 100 million and 1 billion megatons. That is between 2 million and 20 million times more powerful than the largest nuclear weapon ever built. Detonated in an instant. In one place. On your planet. A crater 180 kilometers wide and 20 kilometers deep was punched into the Earth in seconds. The rock beneath the impact point didn't just break. It melted. It vaporized. Billions of tons of material were thrown into the atmosphere, and some of it escaped Earth's gravity entirely and went into space. Everything within roughly 1,500 kilometers of the impact was incinerated in the first few minutes. Not killed. Incinerated, the shockwave traveled through the ground, triggering earthquakes equivalent to a magnitude 11 or 12. The most powerful earthquake ever recorded in human history was a 9.5. A magnitude 12 releases roughly 30,000 times more energy than that. Every fault line on the planet was shaking at the same time. Then came the tsunamis. Waves estimated at hundreds of meters high. We have found fossilized evidence of these tsunamis in Texas, Alabama, and North Dakota, places that were landlocked. The water reached that far inland. And while the ground was shaking and the coasts were drowning, the billions of tons of debris thrown into the upper atmosphere were coming back down. Each piece of re-entering material was essentially a tiny meteor. Billions of them, raining down across the entire globe simultaneously. The heat generated may have raised surface temperatures high enough to ignite forests on every continent. Wildfires ignited across the world. The sky began to fill with smoke. The world was on fire. And the worst was still to come. I want you to picture the most terrifying darkness you can imagine. Not nighttime. Not a power outage. Not a cloudy day. A darkness so complete, so global, so persistent, that plants forget how to grow. That the entire biological machinery of the planet begins to grind to a halt. This is what happened next. And this, not the explosion, not the fire, not the earthquakes, is what truly killed the dinosaurs. Scientists call it impact winter. And it is the most effective extinction machine nature has ever accidentally built. The soot from global wildfires. Pulverized rock dust. And, crucially, billions of tons of sulfur dioxide gas from the vaporized rock. Sulfur dioxide, once it reaches the stratosphere, combines with water vapor to form sulfuric acid aerosols. These aerosols are extraordinarily good at one specific thing: reflecting sunlight. Within weeks, a global layer had formed in the upper atmosphere. A planet-wide shroud. Blocking the sun. Not partially. Not like a cloudy day. Sunlight at the surface dropped to levels too low for photosynthesis to function. The plants stopped growing. Not in one place. Everywhere. Simultaneously. Across the entire planet. Every food chain on land starts with plants. Remove the plants, and you have not just damaged the food chain. You have yanked out its foundation. The herbivores began to starve first. The hadrosaur herds. The triceratops. The vast sauropods. They could not find food because there was no food to find. And as the herbivores weakened and died, the predators that depended on them began to follow. T-Rex, every carnivore that had ever terrorized this world, they were not killed by the impact. They starved. Slowly. Over weeks and months. The apex predators of the Cretaceous world, animals that had never known a threat they couldn't fight, were undone by hunger. Quick interruption. If this story has you hooked, subscribe. New episodes every week. Temperatures plummeted. Scientists estimate drops of 10 to 20 degrees Celsius across much of the planet. Snow fell in places that had never experienced cold. Rivers froze. In the oceans, acid rain changed ocean chemistry. Phytoplankton were devastated. Coral reefs collapsed. The mosasaurs and plesiosaurs had their food supply disappear beneath them. The world did not end with a bang. It ended with silence. With cold. With empty stomachs and darkened skies and a slow, quiet dying that lasted for years. Let's stop here for a moment. Because I think it's important, before we talk about who survived, to actually reckon with the scale of what was lost. 75% of all species on Earth were wiped out. Not 75% of dinosaurs. 75% of everything. Every type of living organism. 3 out of every 4 species that existed before that asteroid hit, gone. Gone were the non-avian dinosaurs. All of them. Every species, from the 70-ton Argentinosaurus to the crow-sized Microraptor. Every egg in every nest. Erased so completely that we only know they existed because of the bones they left in stone. Gone were the pterosaurs. Animals that had mastered powered flight 80 million years before any bird. Think about that. These animals flew. Over these landscapes. In these skies. For 160 million years. And then, nothing. Gone were the mosasaurs. The plesiosaurs. The ammonites, those beautiful spiral-shelled sea creatures that had survived 4 previous mass extinctions over 300 million years. They had outlasted everything. Until this. What makes the KPG extinction so staggering is not just the scale. It is the permanence. When a species goes extinct, it does not come back. The millions of years of evolution that produced a mosasaur, a pterosaur, a triceratops, those blueprints are gone forever. We will never know what a living, breathing Tyrannosaurus rex sounded like. We have bones. We have traces. But the animal itself, real, alive, wild, and magnificent, is gone in a way that is genuinely and irreversibly final. The Cretaceous world was not just damaged. It was deleted. But here is where the story changes. Because against all odds, in the darkest, coldest, most hostile version of Earth that had existed in tens of millions of years, some things survived. And the reason they survived tells us something profound about the nature of life itself. It was not the strongest animals that made it. Not the largest, the fastest, the most fearsome. The animals that defined the Cretaceous by their power and dominance were precisely the ones most vulnerable to what the post-impact world demanded. What the post-impact world demanded was not power. It demanded flexibility. Small size. Low energy needs. The ability to eat almost anything. The willingness to hide. Our ancestors, yours and mine specifically, were small, burrowing, probably nocturnal mammals. They could shelter underground, insulated from the worst temperature swings. They could eat insects, seeds, fungi, decaying plant matter, food sources that persisted even in the dark. They were, by every measure of the Cretaceous world, unimpressive animals. Overlooked. Hiding in the shadows while the dinosaurs above them dominated everything. But those shadows, those burrows, those cracks in the rock, were exactly the right place to be when the sky went dark. The meek, as it turns out, really did inherit the Earth. They just had to wait 66 million years for the opportunity. Crocodilians survived. Their ability to go months without eating made them nearly extinction-proof. The fact that crocodiles and alligators today are virtually identical to their Cretaceous ancestors is a testament to one of evolution's most perfectly tuned survival machines, and birds survived. Modern birds are dinosaurs, the direct descendants of small feathered theropods. In the most literal biological sense, the dinosaurs did not go entirely extinct. Every bird alive today, every sparrow, every hawk, every penguin, is a living dinosaur. The only ones that made it. The darkness did not last forever. Over months, then years, the aerosols and dust settled from the atmosphere. The sun, patient, unchanged, indifferent to what had happened below, began to reach the surface again. The first plants to return were ferns. Ferns are extraordinarily good at colonizing devastated landscapes. It is so reliable that paleontologists call it the fern spike, a sudden explosion of fern spores in the fossil record immediately following mass extinction events. Then other plants returned. Insects came back. Small vertebrates spread out from their shelters. The world was nothing like what it had been, but it was alive. And it was empty. Empty in a way that the world had not been empty for 165 million years. Every ecological niche that a large animal had occupied was vacant. And nature does not tolerate vacancies for long. The mammals emerged into a world that was suddenly, completely, overwhelmingly theirs. Within 10 million years of the extinction, a blink, geologically speaking, mammals had diversified into an astonishing range of shapes and sizes. Ancestors of horses, whales, elephants, bats, and primates all emerged within this short window. Without the extinction, none of this happens. Mammals had coexisted with dinosaurs for over 100 million years without ever rising to dominance. They needed the slate wiped clean. They needed the vacancy. They needed the dinosaurs to be gone. The end of the Cretaceous was not just destruction. It was the opening of a door. And our ancestors, small, frightened, improbable, walked through it. The Chicxulub crater is still there. Buried beneath the jungles and ocean of the Yucatan Peninsula, 180 kilometers wide, invisible from the surface, but detectable from orbit. In 2016, scientists drilled deep into its core and pulled up rock sealed since the moment of impact. A direct, physical record of the worst day in 66 million years, locked in stone. In geological outcrops around the world there is a thin, dark layer called the KPG boundary. Below it, a rich, diverse record of Cretaceous life. Above it, almost nothing. A silence in the fossil record that speaks louder than any explosion. That line, a centimeter of compressed sediment, is the most dramatic moment in the history of life on Earth. Here is what I want you to take away from this. Every single human being alive today exists because of that asteroid. Because of that collision. Because 75% of life on Earth was wiped out, and a tiny frightened mammal survived in the dark and kept living. You are not here despite the extinction. You are here because of it. The dinosaurs were extraordinary. They deserved better than they got. The universe was not fair to them. But the universe's cruelty to the dinosaurs was the condition of your existence. Every breath you take is built on their extinction. Right now, at this moment, there are asteroids in our solar system on trajectories that bring them close to Earth. Most will miss by enormous margins. But the universe has no obligation to warn us. It didn't warn the dinosaurs. We are the first species in Earth's history capable of detecting an incoming asteroid and, theoretically, doing something about it. The dinosaurs had no such option. We do. Whether we use that option wisely, is a question we are still answering. This has been the Primordial Record. If this story made you feel something, subscribe. Because every episode of this channel is built around that same feeling. Next episode, we go further back. To an extinction so vast, so total, so catastrophic that today's video looks modest in comparison. An event that nearly ended all complex life on Earth forever. They call it the Great Dying. And it is one of the most terrifying stories in the history of this planet. See you there.